The nerd was trying to buy shitty computer components to save money on assembly and fool his parents. Since my previous story went so well, I'll share another one from my time working at the IT logistics company McPrint. Some people think that the client is always right. This is a harmful misconception. The truth is that most of the time the client is arrogant, but you still have to behave yourself in the workplace. It's especially hard when you're dealing with someone who's sure they know everything, even though they don't really understand a damn thing. So one guy walks into my department, and I meet him at the entrance. I've always been that dude who shows up instantly when someone comes in. Welcome to our Assemble by Yourself department. I am anonymous. What are we collecting today? The guy snorts and says, "The computer is obviously full of arrogance." In front of me was a typical bearded nerd in a My Chemical Romance t-shirt, in such tight pants that his stomach bulged like a mushroom, and in 2 different shoes. And obviously both are clean on purpose. They just don't match his image. I did not examine it. My father always said that you should evaluate a person at a glance, and then look into his eyes all the time. He really trained us on this stuff. Turn around, take a look, and tell me which cars you saw in a split second. I was good at it, so I got into the habit of writing all sorts of rhymes on the fly to memorize the key details. It stuck that way for the rest of my life. I'm saying this because I didn't look at his bow, so I'm sure his irritation was caused by the clucking employees from the general department who didn't work for us. He mistook my smile for the fact that I was laughing at him. I pretended I hadn't heard him, and when he repeated it, I apologized and asked him to speak up. I said I couldn't hear well. This calmed him down a bit, as he decided that I couldn't hear these clumps discussing him. I heard it, of course, but I wasn't going to show it. With the same arrogant look, he thrust the list at me and, bending down in front of me, shouted, "I don't want to be sold anything." "That's what I need. Go get it." I look at the list. It's quite detailed, the name and articles. I'm like, okay, it looks like a complete assembly kit. It's a good check. Although many of the positions were from the cheap segment. I tell him I need a few minutes, and I suggest we look around in case he wants anything else. He rudely replies that he's going to stand here, and that he's not going to buy shit anymore. So I don't even have to try to give him my snake oil. I smiled and said, "Oh, but it's so good for joints and muscles." He didn't appreciate the joke, so I just left to collect his order. About halfway through collecting his order, I realized that he was paying attention only to the prices, not to what each detail was doing. He had an AMD processor in his build, but he wanted an Intel motherboard. He chose a thin case, and the graphics card he needed would not fit there. He needed a low-profile one, although the Intel motherboard already had integrated graphics, so I wasn't sure why he needed the card at all. He also chose a power supply unit that was worse and weaker than the one that already came with the case. Anyway, I had a burning desire to ask what the hell he was even trying to collect. I quickly packed everything and brought it. I went through every detail and got his confirmation. Then I asked if it was all for one build. He naturally snapped something like, "Wow, how observant," or something like that. I smiled and tried to explain that some components don't work together, but he just interrupted me. "Look, I don't need you trying to push anything at me. I've been building computers for a long time, and I know what I'm doing." He didn't know a damn thing, and I would like to verify the veracity of this statement. So I asked if he wanted to hear about our refund policy, just in case. He began to rage. He yelled that he knew what he was doing, and how dare I think he was stupid because of his appearance. Of course, he looked stupid, but I think his anger was more because of the pretty girls who trolled him, and his own insecurity, rather than because of my words. "Okay, so you're not interested in either our refund policy or the extended warranty." "That's right," I clarified. "We are obliged to offer guarantees to everyone," but I understood that he would take it with hostility, so I just formally closed the point. "Guarantees for suckers." "I look like a sucker," he snapped. "Yes, it does, but I didn't say that." He just smiled and asked if I could check the list again to make sure everything was correct. I took out my phone and took a picture of everything along with the list. I knew that most of it would be returned, and I let him go. I didn't even put our stickers on the packaging because I knew what would happen. After 2 days, the nerd reappeared. A potbelly, 2 different shoes, and an A.